Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Tuesday Tools with Tool House. So I'm back here with Kolby Kail. Actually, Kolby invited me last week to one of her Facebook sessions, and now we are back together. We're going to do this every Tuesday. It's going to be super fun. So, and just talking about our great work that we do. Obviously, we're both, work with children and parents, which is our commonality. And we've worked together at Solana Beach in San Diego for a few years. She actually came in to work with several of the students that were enrolled in our school, and then was really helpful during parent conferences and meetings and things like that, because she actually has a variety of different things that she does in her speech therapy business. I'm going to let her talk a little bit about that. And then we'll just start chatting about this great work that she does and that I do with parents and children that's all been brought online, mostly for the last almost a year, or maybe a little over a year. And some of that will continue and, based on the preferences of the parents, and some of it will be in person as we move forward, who knows? But we're gonna really dive into that so parents can feel supported.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, my name is Kolby. I am a speech language pathologist and a certified oral facial biologist and a parenting coach. But really, when I do the parent coaching, most people come to me because we have some type of either a delay or you're trying to enroll your kid really in doing exercises that I need you to do with them. So we talk about behaviors and how to overcome those behaviors to get your child to complete the task at hand or the speech therapy task at hand. Because yes, you are going to get behaviors, avoidance, and
Hmm.
um, you know, crying and saying they can't do it and they need help. So you are going to need to be able to have fun with this and be able to show your kid kind of how to have fun while even though it's hard. And so again, just so everyone knows, when you are doing speech therapy, at least with me, I really don't want any sit down. I mean, don't get me wrong, you are going to sit down, but it's not going to be a long, lengthy point of range of time. The motor theory, which is what most OTs and all of us go off of, is that the more often you do something in short periods of time, the faster it gets into your subconscious.
Hmm.
So if you think about that in terms of like adults walking with a limp, if I asked you walk with a limp, because that is also a patterned skill that your body kind of learns its own gait. If I asked you to change that and walk with a limp for the rest of the day, most likely you're going to make mistakes. The same way in which when we're teaching
Oh.
a child to change the pattern of speech, it is a very difficult task, especially if they're already over the developmental age where it stops developing.
Hmm.
Stops developing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's so helpful actually, because last week we were talking about power struggles.
Yeah.
And with my parent coaching, I, was a Montessori teacher for years, and understand, the developmental, the developmental benchmark points for children. However, I'm not trained in working with children who have, specific challenges. So what I think is really helpful about what you said is, oh yes, that behavior is a clue. So when children are, resisting and, like when you said, shutting down and kind of going into that assumed inadequacy, maybe the reading's really hard for them, or maybe the speech is really hard for them. And maybe that's a clue for parents that haven't already reached out to maybe get some support, to have some assessment done, or, to reach out to you and just say, this is what I'm seeing, what are your thoughts? Um, am I on point there?
Absolutely. And yes is the answer. And the clue idea in terms of, yeah, you're totally there because in reading, is it memory? Do they not remember what those letters say? So sounding things out is really hard. Is it the seeing? Is it the tracking? I mean, it is going to be
Oh,
a process of finding out where are we in the breakdown, because
right.
just because you're showing me behavior doesn't mean it's, oh, I know what that means. You know what I mean? That's where the investigation,
Hmm.
where we start digging and looking for that absolute.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and your repertoire is so broad. So you help children with articulation, with actual speech development, and things like dyslexia, and just kind of having challenging, I with tracking with their eyes, and you're able to do all of those things. So,
Not exactly. So when we look at like the phonological processing of it, because that phonological and that phonemic awareness, sometimes that tracks. It's kind of like when you think about it, an S and a kid that has a lisp. So let's say S is usually developed by about age 4. So if you're thinking about S, sometimes they substitute it if you have a frontal lisp for the with a
uh-huh,
out there. So instead of see, it's he. I see you.
that, uh-huh,
So the comes out. However, now think about the word thumb. Usually they change that to thumb. So we know structurally that the tongue can come out, they can make that sound,
mm,
but they're not hearing the difference. And
right,
sometimes the phonemic and the phonetic don't grow in at the same time. And we have to kind of come in there and help that whole patterning skill and the
yeah,
long because structurally the child is able to make that sound. We know that because they have lips. But again,
yeah,
they're substituting F for the TH when they have it. You know what I mean?
right. So I guess with anything, it takes practice, so helping the parents understand how to
Well, and helping
help the child.
and helping the ear hear it. So you're developing
Hmm.
in terms of hearing the sound, you're putting the sound the correct way. So they kind of it all you're hearing yourself make errors because all of us make errors sometimes.
Yeah,
You just have to make those corrections to make sure our the actual clarity of the speech in terms of the message that's being conveyed gets across correct.
right, right. Yeah, and then I think once they start to be able to do those things more confidently and, with more fluency, then they feel more capable and more confident and things start falling into place a little bit, nicely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, go ahead.
Well, the children, so I do parent coaching, as you know, but I also do some online tutoring, with students. And when they're really struggling with reading, because I do have some students who their articulation and enunciation and everything's great, but they're very resistant to the actual, moving forward with reading. And because I'm not trained in identifying special support that somebody might need, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, when is it a good time for somebody to reach out to you? Because reading's really coming along kind of slowly, and they're resisting and they're hiding. And yeah, we'll do the math with you, but we don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, that is going you're when frustration kicks in, I always say reach out for help because frustration is not cool for anybody in my
Yeah. And
uh,
it's also contagious.
and I don't care what anyone says. When you're teaching your own kid, I think we talked about this before. The love amount and the strings that are be able to pull both ways are difficult. So number one, I would take a step back and just say, let's just be mom for a minute, maybe
Hmm.
mom hat, and just read with the kid and make it fun. Sometimes I do a page, my kids do a page.
Right.
And see if it ever gets any easier if you take things off of them
Right.
then then at that same time talk to the teacher, and if you are the teacher, if you're doing homeschooling, then I say reach out because why not get just another eyes on them to say,
Hmm.
"Mhm, I see something
And
too."
then, yeah. And
And
maybe they just need a little boost, and maybe they need something a little bit more intense. Yeah.
and at least for me, a brainstorm session is free, a screening is free, so the first times are usually pretty cost effective, so why not reach out to someone and get
Right. Exactly.
pair of eyes on him and just ease the mind of all of that.
Yeah.
you know there's a lot to keep up with out there, and
Yeah. And
I
so what else? So you do the, all of the speech therapy, motor therapy, structural, therapy, everything, with speaking, and then also, reading, support and things like that. What else do you offer, and how can parents reach out to you?
so I offer all those things you said in multiple ways. So if you have questions in terms of your child's development, most likely if it's in terms of enunciation, understanding things, even
Hmm.
looking at that executive functioning or pragmatic language, how your kid uses language socially, and do they have the words to say when things get
Oh,
difficult?
yes, that's so important.
Like
Yeah.
negotiating is one of those things in terms of you want to go on the slide? No. Well, then what happens? What
Yeah.
stay and to keep that conversation going so you don't feel excluded, number one, or so you can just kind of also get what you want out of your friends and be able to have that actual back and forth.
Yes, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
so much sense.
And then with the online in terms of the artic and the oral motor therapy, usually most of my clients that I don't see, because I don't see all of my parents all the time. So we make sure that one of the sessions once a month, I do meet with parents as much of the session is needed. So if let's say it's a 30-minute session, sometimes I meet with the parents for 15 minutes and then I see their kid the rest of the time, or sometimes we meet the whole 30 minutes. So we know we break down to make sure everyone only has 3 goals so we can make sure that needle moves forward every month and you're
Hmm.
exactly what you have to do in the home, what your plan is. Do I need to make you videos? Do I need to have you come to, another workshop to where I can teach you exactly what that is? So the parents need to be highly educated on what they're
Uh-huh.
during these Zoom sessions, just because you at least it used to be when we were seeing the kids, usually we would send something home and things still come home. But now that I'm actually almost in your house, the fact that
Hmm.
I maybe have a session with you, we're seeing a lot better progress in these
Oh,
kids
that's amazing. Yeah.
because the parents know exactly what to do. And only working with me for 30 minutes is, like going to the gym for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You don't really make that much progress. But if you know exactly what to do every day, in small sections, again, small little chunks all day long, you're going to see much more rapid progress than sitting
Mhm.
15 minutes with your piece of paper.
Yeah, I totally agree because I teach parents the same thing, and the parenting tools that I give them, I was like, these aren't just tools that you can transactionally implement and think that all of a sudden your family dynamics are going to transform. You have to continue to practice them, and they're not going to work at first because you're going to be changing the way you interact, and so people are going to be looking at you like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
And so I talk a lot about that continuum of change, when you're unconsciously unskilled, and then you kind of move to that, you know paradigm, and then eventually you're supporting your child's language development, unconsciously skilled,
totally.
because you've been working with Kolby and you know how to do it, and that's what makes the shift is the continuity.
Yeah, and I completely agree that usually when you're going to change something in your kids' day or whatever, almost exactly what you said. In my opinion, not only do they lean back, sometimes they kick, and it's more like going up on a one of those things called roller coaster to where
Yeah,
it's
escalator.
a little bit worse for a hot minute, but
Yes.
then they even
Yeah.
because you have changed your behavior, you have changed your expectations and make
Hmm.
and it gets better, but that initial kick
Yeah.
is usually the hardest one to get over.
Yes, because there's always like chaos when you make a change, and it's like that storm that allows you to move into the rebirth. So yeah, so parents, don't get frustrated. Stay with it.
Stay with it because really, usually it takes, in my experience, 2 weeks. So the first week, it's kind of uncomfortable. The second week, they try to get out of it by really, and
No.
the third week, they've accepted it. The first week was hard because it was a new task. The second week, they just didn't want to do it. And
Yeah.
the week, you're almost in a routine now. So
Yeah.
that first 2 weeks really sucks.
Oh, I love that 2 weeks. Like we talk a lot about that in Montessori, like fostering independence with sleeping in infants. 2 weeks, but if you stop, if you don't actually do it consistently for 2 weeks, then you're not going to get, the same results. So I love that.
Consistency is everything. Consistency is everything.
Consistency, routine, and order.
Aye, aye,
I
sir.
love those 3 words. Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Order in my house is not all that. I'm not gonna say
Well, but your children are in the second plane of development now, so they have internalized their sense of order. Between the ages of 0 and 6, the external order is pretty important because that's how they navigate.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I wish I was better at order and organization. Whatever. Well, I'll get there.
Systematic skills, and we all have things to work on. And that's the beauty of this. It's like we're helping our children, but we're also co-voyaging with them, and we're continuing to be our best selves.
And
Nobody expects us to be perfect.
no, and what I've found personally, and in my clients at least, when you understand the dynamic and you actually understand the task in terms of being the teacher, because being able to teach something is different than in my opinion, just being able to understand it. When you
Yeah.
can teach something and you use know how to put it out there, it means something different than understanding it. So
And internalizing it.
yeah, and when
Hmm.
parents understand something, they can hold their own a little easier. And so I
Hmm.
think when I teach them to hold their own in terms of no, the tongue needs to come here. You nope, Colby said it has to touch right there. Remember, we put
Yeah.
something there. So it's just it gives them more, I don't know, stable legs to stand on. And
Yeah.
the bond between them and the kid becomes better because they know exactly, no, no, I was taught this way. I don't need to budge because and you know what I mean. It just the kid seems to respect the parents because I think boundaries are needed. I think we all respect boundaries. That's why
Hmm. And the kids want them. Children want boundaries. Yeah.
adults want boundaries.
Yes, it helps us feel safe.
We follow the traffic lights. We stay on the other side of the white line. We need boundaries. It's
Hmm.
a bad thing.
Right. I love that. All right. Well, and also for all of you parents that are watching and looking at this, Colby has a magnificent rapport with the children. Like they love her. She's fun and she's lively and has lots of energy and they love working with her because you make it fun. And I think you love it. You love it, so they love it.
Land in me. That's what I call it. When the children are there, I can keep all the
Yeah.
energy going, so they are stay with me, kind of.
Hmm.
So that part is, I think, God given. So thank you.
And always over prepared. Like you always have lots of things to do, whatever the task is. There's like 20 ways that you can do it in case that child loses interest quickly. So she's always really prepared, lots of energy and lots of fun.
Um,
So
but you guys, I do have a website, KolbyKailSpeechTherapy.com, and I'm on Facebook, Kolby Kail, and Kolby Kail on Instagram. And so I do give a free monthly workshop if anyone wants to come to that. We talk about all things speech and what are those things, phonological processes, all that kind of good stuff. So and then again, free brainstorms, free screenings. So come on over. We'll help you out.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It's always so much fun. And it always feels just so organic, and natural to just be sitting here talking with you. Super fun.
Yeah. All right. Thank you
All
very much.
right. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day. And Colby, I'll see you next week.
See ya. Have a good one.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.